Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us this morning for an epic time in our history through the lens of SpaceX. Thank you to Mayor John Cowan Jr., our city commissioners, and our city manager, Ms. Helen Ramirez, for hosting our One City and regional community. We would also like to recognize Adrianelli Gomez and Joshua Rosas, representing Senator Ted Cruz's office, Laura Matamoros, representing Congressman Vicente Gonzalez, and former State Senator Eddie Lucio Jr. We are here this morning to commemorate the monumental step in new space exploration that was achieved at Starbase Boca Chica Beach last November, when SpaceX's second test launch sent the most powerful Starship rocket and Super Heavy boosters straight over the skies of the Gulf of Mexico and South Texas. It was an incredible sight to see. That magnificent test launch is a testimony to the vibrant partnership between the global aerospace company SpaceX and the city of Brownsville, and more importantly, the regional partnership between SpaceX and the entire South Texas region, as SpaceX provides thousands of jobs to our market and the great state of Texas. Can we please take a moment to give this partnership a round of applause? Starship's Raptor engine really showcased the cutting-edge technology and engineering excellence being created right here in our backyard. Our community has seen a surge in local businesses thriving, thanks to the influx of visitors and space enthusiasts, further bolstering our regional economy. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited for us to take flight in our program. Please help me welcome Brownsville Mayor, Mr. John Cowan Jr.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Daphne. It is my pleasure to be here with you this morning and welcome you to this special event. I am thrilled to extend our city's heartfelt congratulations to SpaceX on their successful launch of their Starship rocket and Super Heavy booster on November 18th. This remarkable achievement not only marks a significant milestone in space exploration, but also underscores the vibrant and innovative spirit of our community. When SpaceX launches here, the eyes of the world are on Brownsville. The presence of SpaceX in Brownsville has been a catalyst for economic growth and development. It has created job opportunities, spurred investments in local infrastructure, and attracted a diverse array of businesses and talent to our region. This collaboration between SpaceX and our community is a testament to what can be achieved when public and private sectors work together toward a shared vision. This morning, it is my pleasure and honor to introduce and welcome to the stage SpaceX's Starbase General Manager, Ms. Catherine Leaders, for a special presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me give a warm welcome to our guest. Catherine.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I know, like, normally, the few weeks before the holidays, this is, you guys are really cramming in this into your busy schedules, because I know you guys have a ton of things to go on. Monticello keeps telling me all the parties she's going to, so I'm just happy that she's able to be here today, help me out. It is a very, very exciting time for us here at SpaceX. I'm going to talk a little bit about where we are today and where we want to be, and then obviously I'm going to bask in a little bit of the glow of Flight 2, because that was a phenomenal event for me, and being able to be on the edge of Sanchez Lot and being able to watch that launch was just a once-in-a-lifetime experience for me. Next slide. I'll talk a little bit about myself. Just to give context, the reason that mission was so important for me, I'd worked for NASA for 30 years when I started in NASA, and I think some of my SpaceXers think I was on the Apollo program, but I keep telling them, no, I was not on the Apollo program. But I really started after the space shuttle had been flying. And at the time, one of the things that all the old NASA folks that had worked on the Apollo program that I had started working with would always be like, you unfortunately never got to see a Saturn V. And oh, these shuttle missions are very wimpy compared to the Saturn V. And so I'm very proud to say now that I was able to experience a Starship launch, and a Starship launch is twice as big as a Saturn V now. So one of these days I tell the SpaceXers, I go, you're going to be like those old Apollo people, and the way you're teasing me, and you'll have all your war stories in the future. But very, very exciting time for me to be able to have had this experience of being able to work on the NASA side, work on multiple missions going forward with the cargo missions, Crew, International Space Station. I was the Human Exploration and Operations Mission Director at Associated Administrators, so I actually had like a ton of missions underneath me, had a lot of fun launches, everything else. But what all that experience made is it made me realize how important Starship is to our nation's exploration goals and really to pushing the envelope of this next phase of exploration. Okay, let's get off of me and jump on to the next thing. So first, I think a lot of people know what space is, but I'll talk a little bit about what space is, and then what is Starbase and how Starbase is really becoming a transformational piece of SpaceX. And then we'll talk a little bit about our Starship. So next slide. So, you know, SpaceX started out, when I first started, I went to my first SpaceX meeting as a NASA person in 2006, and it was after we'd had the failure of, or Elon was showing me videos of the failure of their E1 launch vehicle. And so it's been a fun ride to see going from that 2006 timeframe and seeing it grow up and begin to launch Falcon 9s and begin to deliver cargo to the International Space Station. And here we are today with them heading into their 8th human spaceflight mission to the International Space Station. And we're heading like at a rate of launching from the Cape and Vandenberg, where we probably will hit our 100th launch this year. Pretty phenomenal. No other company has been able to do that. So, yeah. And what that takes is, and this is, what it takes is really being kind of mercenary about how are you operating and flying and continue to create excellence out of that. I mean, when Falcon 9 first started flying, I think the first year, you know, we were lucky if we got like 3 launches off. And so then over time, obviously the team has to continue to improve and assess and push the envelope and learn from the vehicles. And so the fact that at the first we were looking at, you know, 8 to 9 reuses for a first booster, and now we're looking at getting an assessment for 18 to 20, just shows that we're continuing to understand our hardware, we're continuing to find ways to make our operations better, and then that improves our overall Falcon 9 mission templates. So that same learning, we're at the same phase where we're at the beginning now of us applying that learning and those skills from the other parts of our missions, and now taking this, and here we're starting this new experimental vehicle that we've got to work out the kinks for, but we are figuring out, is there ways that we could then start modeling this next phase of Starship operations in the same way. Next slide. So lots of different locations. I think, you know, obviously you can kind of look along the coast. We have satellites up in Seattle, which is kind of where, you know, right now you got a tech hub up there. Obviously, Vandenberg on the East Coast, a launch site for us, and then We've got the Air Force LC-40 plus launching off a historic 39A. We actually had been I've been part of the team that had worked on getting 39A turned over to SpaceX for the cargo and crew missions going to the ISS and also for our Falcon 9 Heavy missions. But if you notice, here we are in Brownsville, and everybody says, well, how did you end up here? And it's like, you need the coast to be able to launch ships. You know, you need to be able to fly over water, and some, depending on where, obviously, the position of the payload's going. But what's really cool about this is we have all these different sectors within and with SpaceX locations that actually work together to help us accomplish our mission here. We have engineering in Hawthorne that is helping and building of the Raptor engines in Hawthorne, and then we ship them, and all of our Raptor engines are hot-fired in McGregor, Texas, and then brought down here. And then all the rest of the vehicle is made out at Starbase. You know, we always say we bring in steel at one end of the factory, and rockets come out the other end. And so our goal is to make Starbase then our premier manufacturing, launching, and operational center for our starships. But we get a lot of help from friends. It's why I'm always bugging Helen about getting good Avelo flights and stuff, because we need people coming in from Orlando, we need people coming in from Hawthorne, and we need people coming in from McGregor. And so us continuing to work together on having infrastructure to be able to accomplish these missions is huge for us. Next slide. So this is, I already kind of alluded to this a little bit. I mean, if it kind of shows that we don't ever start, you know, Starship is just going to blow everybody else out of the market here for the amount of payload. I want to give you a few statistics. So if we looked at Saturn V and the lunar module that the Saturn V had flown, it had the capacity to be able to take about 300 pounds of payload. And with Starship, and this is where it's the big game changer, with Starship, the goal is to be able to take 100 tons of payload to the surface. And so that's the thing that really enables exploration. When you can start taking that amount of payload, then it allows you to start thinking about, can we create permanent structures? Can we put infrastructure there to be able to accomplish missions that we have? And you know, a lot of people go, holy crap, that sounds crazy for you to be doing that. But this is what, it's this kind of pushing the envelope, making sure that we have, like, our figuring out what does it take to really make the mission happen and fully accomplishing it. So from a NASA perspective, us, you know, when I was on the other side and we would look at what did Starship enable, it really enabled sustained operations and research on the south pole of the moon, right? It enabled us to be able to leave and conduct ongoing operations there if you were able to take that much payload up there. So we're still figuring out, I mean, this vehicle is a game changer, and really right now we're trying to figure out what are all the different uses and working with our government partners, our other commercial partners on how does this and this amount of throw weight really be able to help accomplish their missions going forward. But you can see having it be, you know, almost 400 feet. And when you go up there and see it on the pad, you really can get a sense of just how tremendously big this rocket is. Next slide. But, you know, this has taken a lot of work to get to this point. It's not easy. It's not easy. I think Elon used to have a joke that said, how do you become a millionaire in space? You start with $1 billion and then spend a lot of money on infrastructure, right? So, but it's all of these critical goals that really are like helping us kind of get here today and really pushing towards this next step of human exploration, and for Elon having this idea of us being an interplanetary species and making sure we're knocking down the things that we need to do to be able to accomplish that. And he would love it within his lifetime, but as a company, we are laser focused on making sure that we're accomplishing the key steps to make it a reality. So here's the milestones we accomplished so far. We need to keep having a few more Starship test launches. Hopefully I'm here in another year or so, and I can be showing how what we've accomplished over this next year coming up, being able to prove out different parts of our system. This next year is going to be really, really critical for us to continue to test out and being able to kind of move the Starship into this next level of being able to accomplish this mission, along with us looking at reuse of the boosters and being able to perform landing operations. All of that takes a level of practice that we're trying to lay out and work through the critical steps that we need to accomplish to make that happen. So let me talk a little bit about Starbase. I think one of the really, when I see pictures from 10 years ago, and then pictures from 2 years ago, and then pictures from today, and if you're out at Starbase, for anybody that's been out at Starbase, they understand we're in the middle of a major construction activity. I mean, we have a 1 million square foot factory coming online and being built right now. We have additional homes being built in the village that we have coming online. We have all of our utilities. We kind of did a little bit backward. We built a bunch of stuff and then we built our utilities, and so that didn't necessarily make that the easiest job in the world, but we're working on that too right now. Along with adding another pad out at the we have our first pad, obviously, but looking at adding another pad because with the launch cadence we'd like to have, getting that second pad ready is going to be another goal that we have for this year. We're also, using our Massey's test site. That test site is very critical because what it allows us to do is keep our test operations at the Massey's test site and away from the beach. We know that it's a pain in the butt for everybody when we have to close the beach, and so we're moving more of our testing over there so that it doesn't impact operations that are over near the beach. So we are really working hard to figure out how we can accomplish and achieve the goals that Elon has for us to get this factory up to speed, get a new office building up to built, get the homes built, and then be moving into, this kind of the fast-paced activity of us producing and launching rockets at a regular cadence. Next slide. This takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of people. This is one of my favorite pictures. We just got done with the pad. It's pretty phenomenal. We had the launch in April. As folks know, we learned a lot about how the vehicle and the pad interact together, and so we had to make a pretty significant design changes to the pad to add some cooling capabilities because there was just too much energy with our Raptors and the pad. We were trying to have a kind of a very clean pad and simple design, and we ended up finding out that we need to make this feature add the water cooling aspect of it. So that all got done though in about 2.5, 3 months, and we all got together and celebrated when we actually did our testing and everything checked out, and it was just a real, I call these goldfish moments, because there's an old Far Side cartoon where there's the marauders, heading into the castle, and they look down on the moat and they say, "Oh, there's goldfish here." And so you're in the middle of the battle, but you got to stop every once in a while and really appreciate, "Oh, we got the pad done and it's working well." And so we all got out there and took a picture, and then all went back to work to go get the next step done. But every day out there, we're continuing to to make more progress going forward. Next slide. So I do think there was a conscious effort when SpaceX decided to come down here to be able to really partner with an area that they felt would be open to the partnership and the work that SpaceX was going to be bringing to the area. Right now, you know, we have over 2,100 full-time employees. Really, we're looking for our operation to grow if you're starting to talk about multiple launches and vehicle flows and everything else. Obviously, this is going to be an area where we're going to continue to need to have excellent workers being able to support us out there at Starbase. We continue to look for different ways to be able to interact and work within the community and be a part of the community. You know, one of the reasons I'm here today is for you to say, hey, I know I actually got to meet Kathy Leaders, the general manager at Starbase, and if you have any ideas about how we can better interface with the community or serve the community, I would really like to know, and along with Maricela, right? I think we've been, you know, obviously working with Helen and John and the team here on, you know, what are different things that we could be working together, but we do care about the educational community here because that is what's going to be creating the talent that we will need to have in the future. We also care about the medical community because that's going to be taking care of the talent that we have and that is going to keep people here in the Valley. And obviously we talk a lot about, you know, we appreciate all the building that's going on and availability and the educational upgrades that everybody's doing across the board because those also are things then that keep and attract talent to this area. So we're here to stay, and we really would like to continue to partner and find ways to get our employees to stay and live in this area as long-term assets out at Starbase. Next slide. One of the things our folks really, though, they do appreciate, obviously they're part of Starbase, but they also want to have and be part of a community out. And so I think some of the funnest events we have are where we are able to find these things where they can feel like they're helping the community. So our beach cleanups are like one of the favorite activities that people have. All of the sea turtle rescue activities. I mean, we have people that, you know, go out there. I've gone out for a 4-hour stint on the jetties and everything else looking for turtles. I didn't find any, so I was really jealous that the next person found 2. I was like, hey, I think you took one of mine, but you know, but it's an amazing thing when you go. I don't think my husband's ever going to be allowed to go again because I think he was driving the volunteer nuts, like kept stopping, like there's some tracks, and no, of course none of them. She'd be like, no, that's a squirrel, or no, that's not this. Let me show you what it looks like again. So I think after about an hour of him, she was getting pretty tired. But you know, us being there, our SpaceXers love the fact that the beach is there. We have our SpaceX shredders. They go out surfing. But they're also out on South Padre. We have people like love the Port Isabel area, Brownsville area. We had a zoo event here that everybody was just blown away with. So we actually spend, Maricela and an internal events person, we actually look around and do like at least one external event a month for our families out in the community to make sure we're getting our families out and to be able to experience all the great things that are here in the Valley. And so we're going to continue to do that. We feel like it's what attaches them to the community, and then when you attach them to the community, that we found out they're here to stay. Thank you. Next slide. So, this is my video? Okay, this is good. I'll be able to take a drink then. Okay, well, what? that's our secret recruiting tool video too. So we want people to say yes for you to come out and work, but there's some other things there for you to be able to do too. So it's you guys, anyone that wants to come out to SpaceX, hopefully some of you brought you in. Let me talk a little bit about Starship. Next slide. So you saw the comparison. So I think that we're kind of saying over and over again that, you know, it's the largest, most powerful rocket in history, 400 feet tall, 16 million pounds of thrust. I already told you that it blows away a Saturn V. You know, the goal is to have it be fully reusable. You know, this is a big, we just landed our 100th first stage on Falcon 9. And no other company does that. In fact, after the second Starship flight, and we separated and then we terminated the first stage, one of the folks I was talking to said, yeah, that's what everybody else does. And we get so used to, from a SpaceXer, we get so used to always returning those missions. And so we got obviously some more work to go before we bring this big booster back, but our goal is to bring the big booster back. And be able to use it and turn it around and launch it again, because it's really that reusability that is really the engine on our launch rate that we're having at the Cape and at Vandenberg. Just being able to bring those rockets back, being able to do preventive maintenance on it, refurb, and then getting it back out there is a big, big deal for us. You know, it's funny, the first vehicle that we returned, we actually repainted it, and then we realized, well, that wasn't very, who cared? Like, it's actually kind of cool to see all the soot and that this one's gone up, you know, and down. And we realized instead of saying used, if you say flight proven, it sounds a lot better. So it shows that this one's worked a bunch, and so it just changed the whole connotation of the rocket industry, because you're saying, you know, normally everybody would be like, I wanted a new one, but you're like, really? Yes, it's been static fired, but don't you want one that has flown? And when it was interesting when you'd have those discussions with people, they're like, yeah, I guess I probably would like one that has been flight proven. Obviously, you don't go throw a rocket on the launch pad and then you know, without a bunch of testing. And the great thing about SpaceX is they invest in hardware, and they invest in being able to try and fail and try again and fail, and it's but what it does is that enables you to be able to get into these fast development cycles that really I think is an amazing strategy. I worked in different programs, and some programs it's like you don't have a lot of hardware and you do a crap load of analysis, and then you're hoping that you're right. And in this way, just from an engineering standpoint, being able to try it and then adjust and try it again, it really is it's a fun way to be able to design and prove out and, you know, refine a design. As you can see, just from the things we had to change between Flight 1 and what we had to do for Flight 2, and the fact that Flight 2 worked so well on the first stage, and, you know, the booster launched all 36 engines, flew, and when we had, and then the Starship, we had a hot gas separation, and that all worked, and all the engines on the Starship lit. So it was just a phenomenal continued progress on every single step that we had wanted to be able to show for our second flight. This near and dear to my heart that, you know, when I was AA, we had actually made the selection for the human landing system. You know, at that stage, we were really setting in the first steps for us to go back to the moon. And so had picked SpaceX as one, and then eventually NASA picked also the Blue Origin. But to be part of this new kind of U.S. space race, to be able to go to be returning to the moon is very, very exciting, and doing it in a very different way, right? And so the Starship is part of our goals for that to be able to accomplish. And so I understand just from a geopolitical standpoint the importance of that going back to the moon, and I'm really, really proud of the fact that we are, as SpaceX, are now part of that mission. Next slide. So, you know, we had the first integrated test. I've already talked a little bit about, you know, it started, in fact, this was a great example at the very beginning of the flight. We knew that 2 of the engines were deselected, but it was a matter of us really going to take advantage of the rest of the knowledge from that flight. And that flight was so important to us because it really set us up then for the second flight. You know, we had, we had this where you had, and I had the wrong number, it's 33 engines on the booster and 6 on the Starship. But the fact that we had all of those light, the fact that we, you know, went through Starship, kept on its trajectory, we were able to get all that flight data, we were able to get the data on the hot staging. That's really going to set us up for and proved out the key features of our next vehicles coming forward. So, you know, I remember we're all standing there, and I think with the engineering folks, they were just like, they were so happy that all these key aspects and verification activities after all the hard work they did were proven out for that mission. And I hope you all were able to enjoy it. I know folks were maybe a little surprised with how much they heard it here in Brownsville, but you know, depending on, and I'll talk about this on the next slide. I'm going to jump in, Marisela. You know, as we are continue to improve, like I said before, we're learning about the vehicle. And so I just want to let everybody know, one of the things we do, and it's actually part of our FAA licensing, is we obviously have to take measurements all around. We have measurements in South Padre, we have measurements west of the site, north of the site, and we're always kind of collecting data to make sure that as part of our FAA license, we have to be able to show, hey, this is what we're expecting, and then make sure that you're able to show you're within the limits of what our analysis have been saying. And so, you know, we're obviously monitoring vibrations, sound levels across the board because that's very, very important for us to make sure within our boundaries that were applied to us from our licensing agreement and impact on the public. The great thing about rockets are very loud, but they're going through the air very, very quickly, and so it's a transient load across the board. And so I know everybody gets a little worried about, okay, what does that mean from vibration effects? But my house is 2 miles, a little bit closer. When I first moved onto Starbase, I was like, this isn't very far from the pad here. But I personally can tell you I had no pictures down, nothing. All my stuff was still in its place. And where I was watching, it was pretty phenomenal, just feeling the acoustic effect and the sound coming across. I mean, that's like one of my favorite things. You see the launch, and then you can just feel the sound rolling across you. But I also have a house in Florida that's near the coast, and I'm telling you, the Florida folks get very used to those rumbles through the afternoons and the mornings too. It's kind of cool to be able to see a rocket launch from your backyard. So don't ever let that get old for you, because it's never gotten old for me. We're obviously continuing to monitor and see like how does obviously weather and wind conditions and even cloud cover all interact with how sound carries. And so we're further refining our models to make sure that we can let people know kind of, you know, that this is normal. This is like all within our planned characteristics, and we'll continue to work on informing you all on that. And every single application, we actually right now are working and updating the data and submitting for our Flight 3 and Flight 4 applications, because as you guys have probably heard in the news, that we tend to get the rockets ready, and then we sometimes are waiting a little bit while we're going through and getting our I's dotted and T's crossed on the licensing application. So we've been working really hard with the FAA on kind of getting ahead of it and defining and continuing to find ways that we can maybe be able to do multiple license applications at the same time. But to be fair to the FAA, we're a unique first-time commercial spaceport, first time, doing experimental flights like this with a huge rocket. So we understand that it's going to take us a little while for us to work through this with them. Next slide. So I think I'm at the question and answer period. So,
Kathy, thank you so much for everything, for just being a great presenter and really giving us a lot of insight as to SpaceX, where it's been, where it's going. And you all submitted some questions for us. We would love to have asked all of them, but we are pressed for time. So I'm going to start with a tough question, Kathy. You ready? How much do you enjoy your job and your leadership role as a woman leading the most innovative company in the world, or should I say universe?
Whoa. So I think one of my favorite parts about SpaceX, and just from coming from NASA, which is kind of pretty hierarchical, when you're at SpaceX, let me tell you, you're one of a team. And what's great about their culture is it doesn't matter who you are, you get to challenge everybody else. It's very, 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 a very good culture that way. It's one of the things I really love about it is that you can be general manager and somebody on the floor is going to challenge, why the heck did you do that, right? And so I love the fact that we are all holding each other accountable for the mission and our parts of the mission, and that. But my most favorite part is that as general manager, when I was working in NASA, I had done a lot of the program management. I was really working on the program side. I'd worked in space station program. I'd worked doing the cargo program, crew program, and then was over the human spaceflight programs. But the one job I never really had was a center director job. And as a center director, you're really taking care of the people. And so what I love about general manager, when Gwen called me up and asked me to do this job, at first I was kind of weighing it with other jobs, and then I said, you know what? The thing that I really love about this job is that for the first time, I won't be necessarily running the program, but I'll get to do all the things that it takes to help the people. And so that's my favorite part. I feel like every day I get to just be focused on how do I make Starbase better for the people that are out there. And obviously continue to show that, hey, you can be an old woman out there helping the people across the board. So, and being there to be part of the team, to be able to show that. I think it's hard, and we were talking about it, it's hard sometimes to be first and be first in your own way. I was the first human exploration operations mission director, female mission director, was the first female human spaceflight manager. But my goal is I tell people I want us to stop having to be the first. So we're working on it. Knocking them down, knocking them down.
And we talk about being the first and your leadership, and you can see that in the work that it's done. But when you talk about your 101st launch is coming up soon, is there anything to fear when SpaceX launches?
Yeah, I think I think I've spent a lot of my years working through FAA licensing, so I think sometimes the biggest misconception people have is that a FAA license is trying to have your mission be safe, or have your mission be successful. Actually, an FAA license is about them making sure that if you fail, you will fail safely. So a lot of what we're doing when we're talking about our FAA license and working through the pieces is showing through our analysis, our trajectories, what we've done on the hardware, so that we are convincing them that we will be able to, if something goes wrong, we will be able to fail in a way that doesn't cause issues, and that we have the safety features in place to be able to do that. And so that's part of the licensing process. So we have a lot of people, and we feel, and this is really, really important, because that's the part. It's okay for us to be able to do these experimental flights, but it's not okay for us to cause issues, you know, when we are terminating the mission at the end. So I think there's a lot of people making sure that we're going to fail safely, and and that's really where the effort is.
Thank you. I told my 11-year-old son, Ian, that I want to live to be 100 and visit Mars. In preparation for humanity's journey, can you tell the audience, once Mars is colonized, will there be different nations? What type of economy will there be? And will SpaceX have something to do with creating new laws on Mars?
Yeah, I think what's amazing is one of the biggest burgeoning markets right now is the space law market. Because even what people didn't realize when NASA first started buying commercial missions to the International Space Station, we actually had to figure out how all these kinds of missions before had been government missions. So we've been kind of stepping into, okay, how do commercial companies operate in space? And what that's really done, I've spent more time with lawyers than I probably ever had, because what you end up having to do is going and figuring out what is the legal liability structure, financial structure to be able to do that. And then on top of it, I've had to learn more about the Outer Space Treaty of 1967 that I ever wanted to, because you also have to figure out how do you work with other countries. There's no borders as you're going around. You have to be able to understand how do we operate together. One of the things that I had worked on when I was at NASA was Artemis Accords, and it's about getting up to, I think we're up to our 32nd country now that's signed, and it's basically a set of rules that you're signing up to for how we operate together. But it's really the basic first steps of us establishing kind of rules of the road for us to be living together on the moon and on Mars. And so it's why I tell people, hey, you know, for us to go to space, we actually don't just need engineers. We need doctors. We need lawyers. We need lawyers, a lot of lawyers right now. You know, you need business people, because they got to figure out how do you have the incentives and everything else. We need environmental people, because they got to figure out how do we collect and solve these problems. And so what's really cool, though, is whenever you go and take a problem into a different environment, it forces you to have to solve it in a different way. And what I found out from working on the International Space Station, when you solve it in that different way, it helps us then figure out ways to be able to solve our problems here on Earth. And so a lot of the medical device advancement, a lot of the like oxygen generation advancement, a lot of the food advancement has been because people have had to live and work on the International Space Station and then taken that material data and been able to put here. So as we're figuring out how to solve a problem for us to live on the moon and on Mars, what I'm also hoping is that we are taking those lessons, and then maybe we'll figure out how to make here a more peaceful place.
That's wonderful. So what does SpaceX, and you talked a little bit about the talent pool that you need, so what does SpaceX envision their talent need to be in the upcoming 2 years? Because the RGV's got talent, and so does Texas, and so how do we fill that talent need that you have that's coming up?
Yeah, I think that the critical thing is sometimes people think, oh, I need to just have engineers, but honestly, like, a ton of our workforce is technicians. Like, technicians are gold for us. And really, for us to have great technicians and is having people that have critical skills, have hands-on, can be able to do the kind of the problem-solving features that really, when you're out there and you're in the field, and like I talked about at the beginning, being able to challenge and be able to come up with improvements over time is really, those are really the key features. People sometimes go, oh, do I need a BS, a mechanical engineer? For certain jobs, but really for what is really important for about 85% of our population is, obviously there's welding skills and everything else, but being a problem solver and being able to come to work and go figure out how can I make this job better is something like we desperately need across the board.
Thank you, Kathy. And can you tell us the main takeaways from the recent launch?
Oh, I kind of stepped through a lot of them. I mean, man, we were so happy that the 33 engines, everything went nominal trajectory. That always, you hear those words on the feed, you're just like, you love it, you know. Hot stage worked beautifully. Like I already said, I had my low ratios done. The 6 engines on the Starship all lit and went. Its trajectory went well. So just being able to see that amount of improvement in, you know, the 5 months of getting the next vehicle ready to go, people, we were really, really excited. It really set us up then for the next phase. Basically, we proved out the booster, and the booster was successful on its second voyage, so that was pretty phenomenal.
And that concludes our questions, Kathy. So thank you so much, Maricela. You've done an excellent job, and all the staff from the City of Brownsville, Communications and Marketing, CVB, Office of Space Commerce, thank you so much. And we're so proud of you being here in Brownsville, Cameron County, Starbase, and everything that's to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's hear another round of applause for SpaceX and CAPI leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been my pleasure. My name is Daphne Maldonado. I am the Director for the Convention and Visitors Bureau and Office of Space Commerce. This concludes our presentation today. Please feel free to enjoy some of our delicious breakfast and coffee. I want to remind you, you can always learn more about events happening across the city of Brownsville by visiting our website at www.visitbtx.com and our social media platforms. Once again, thank you so much for your attendance. Enjoy the rest of your day.